What's up everybody, welcome to episode 6 of the KTM 250 rebuild. In the previous episode we revealed the color of the frame, so I will put a link in the upper right corner in case you didn't see it. And we bought the Linkage and Swingarm bearing kit, which we are going to install in this episode. If you want to support the channel, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And now let's dive right into the content.
So for now we're going to replace the swing arm bearings and the linkage bearings. So I got a swing arm bearing kit and the linkage bearing kit. This includes all the sealings and the pins and the bearings itself. We're going to replace them all. They're already 3 years old, so most of them they are quite good still, but I will just do everything. So if you don't want to change all the bearings, you can just check them one by one. As you can see, for example, this linkage bearing, this one I can freely move by hand. There's a big chance that this one is just fine, and if we get everything apart, clean everything and then put some new fresh grease in it, then it should most likely be okay. Just as with the swing arm, I can just freely move them and they are still quite tight, so these are most likely quite okay as well. But if you look at this one from the rear shock, I can't turn it around, so most likely this one is quite ruined from the inside. You always need to pay attention to these ones, especially if you are working on your suspension. For this bike we're going to do some maintenance on the suspension as well. I'm not going to do it myself, but I'm letting somebody do the maintenance and set it all right for my weight. So your suspension can be very good and you put a lot of money in your suspension, and then you have a bearing like this that can just screw everything up. So it's preferable to just do that at the same time when you're doing maintenance on your suspension. Just check these as well. So first we're going to take this linkage off and then we will see if we can get all the bearings out of there. So this one we can move freely. This one we can move freely. This one is stuck. So let's take this one apart. Usually you can get these pens out like this. There's one pen with 2 rings, one on each side, like this one. So it's like this inside there. You can see it's quite dirty. So that's 2. Let's see if we can get that one out. I'll just hit it for a few times to see if it comes loose. So that's one side. That doesn't look too good. So I'll just get a socket that will fit precisely on there. See if we can drive it through. That's the other side. Okay, so I will first try to get the seals out. You can just push it in and then rotate to one side. There are some rings as well. I'll first do the other side. So there we have the bearings. It's quite hard to do with a hammer, so I'm just going to put one socket on one side to hold the linkage itself in place, and then I will put another socket that is the size of the pen on there and then put it into the vise. So when we do that we can just tighten it and then the pen will go out just like a press. Let's do that. Make sure it's centered. So we can just slowly run it in there, almost there. So that's it. So here you can see the big difference between a good one, a good bearing, and a bad bearing. So this one doesn't have grease in there anymore, and these two still have grease in there. So now we're going to use the same method as with this pen. For the bearings, we're just going to find a socket that fits on there and then drive them all through. So first let's get this one out. And then the seal on the other side. So let's see if we can drive them through. I can just feel them going through, so that's good. Make sure they're nice and centered again. Another two. Now the most difficult one, most likely. The one of the linkage, we're going to push it through with a screwdriver from the other side. So I support it with a wooden block and then try to work it down. So we're almost there. That's one. Because we have one out, we can just put a socket in here for the other one, and that one will go a lot easier. So this one fits in here. It's a 90mm socket. So let's try this. Let's do the rest like this with the socket extender and a hammer. Almost there. There we go. So now all the bearings are out of there. We're going to clean everything up. So now everything is nice and clean. So we're going to push all the new bearings in there. And we're just going to use the vise and some sockets for that. You have to be careful because all the pins in this bearing are not held by some kind of cage. So they can fall out. The grease is holding them together, but just be cautious that they can fall out. I'm just going to hold it straight on there and then push it in. Just make a little circle. Push this side, this side, this side, this side. Then it will go in there. So this one has an edge on which it stops, as you can see. But just make sure on the other ones that you don't push it in too far. Then we can push the seal in. Just like that. So now let's do the other side. And then we can fit the seal in here, like that. So I'm just going to put all the bearings in the linkage first, and then we're going to grease them up. So I will just put this rod in here so the pins don't fall out. So we're first going to push it a little bit in with the hammer. Or you can just push it straight in here and just do it with the vise. I think we're here. Yeah, it's flat, so that's good. Let's do the other ones as well. Push them in until they are even with the edge inside the linkage. So that's one side, and then we can push in the other side. The one of the shock has only one bearing, and the other two that are attached to the link and the swing arm have two in them. So now they are against each other, so that's good. You can feel the second one going quite tight when it hits the other one, so then you can just stop. So now we're going to put some extra grease on the bearings and all the components that need to go in there to make sure that everything is just completely full of grease, that no moist and dirt can go in there. Then we put the rings in here. So first let's put the seals in here and then fill them up with grease. Also get a socket that is just the width of the seal, and then push them in and make them even with the linkage. So now it's quite even. Let's put these rings in. So now all the seals are in there, even with the linkage. So now we're going to fill them with some extra grease. I like to put them completely full with grease, and then when we put the pans in there, we will push the excess out there. And just like that. Okay. So that one is ready, and this one as well. Doesn't matter that there is any grease in this pan, because the axles need to go through there. Okay, so these are ready now. So now we're going to do the same with the swing arm bearings. That's 4. So all the pans are falling out now. So now they're all empty. If the bearing is just okay, you can just put them all back one by one. That's just okay. So let's find a nice socket for this. Just put it straight in front of it, and then we can try to push it through again. So that's one. Let's go on for the second one. Hold the swing arm, because otherwise it drops on the ground. The first one is out already. Proceed for the second one. Okay, so now we're going to clean it up and put the new bearings in there. So now we cleaned the swing arm, so we can put the bearings back in there. Just going to put them even with the edge again. So that's 2. The third one. That one's nice and even as well. Now the last one. So now all the bearings are in there. So now we can put the seals and the rings in. So you need to make sure that the rings are on the side of the chain. That's where we got them out. So we only have rings on the chain side of the swing arm. So that's one. It's nice and even. So let's do the other side so we don't forget the ring. So that's in there as well. And then the last one. So just like the linkage, we're going to fill them up with extra grease. So you put a lot of grease in there, and then you try to push it into the bearing, and then put a new fresh layer on there. So that should be okay. So now we can put the pans in there. So now we're going to clean them up, and this is ready as well. So we got the excess of grease off there, so the swing arm is ready as well. So all the bearings of the linkage and the swing arm have been replaced now, so it's ready to be put back in the frame. The only thing is we're going to clean everything up so it looks nice and fresh when we put it back into the bike. So
that was all for this episode. We have some nice fresh bearings in the linkage and the swing arm, and we can start building up the bike again. So I'm very excited to start working on that in the next episode. If you don't want to miss this episode, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. So thanks for watching and see you next time.